Hi, it's Jessie. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited to bring you this authentic participant session with Vagrein that dives deeply into some truly fascinating topics. Identity, consciousness, time travel, unconditional love. This one is jam-packed. You are going to absolutely adore it. One of the main themes and topics of this particular session is navigating the human experience from expanded consciousness. This was a powerful and spontaneous exchange between Vagrein and the participants, and it is so relevant to what so many of you are going through. And if you love these types of high frequency conversations, I'm so grateful to the participants that allow me to continue bringing them to you. So like, subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell icon so that you're the first to know when any of these new participant sessions come up. And of course, whatever it is you're interested in learning about from Vagrein, leave a comment right now to let me know what themes and topics you're exploring so that I can have them channel directly on those for you or create some new content along those lines. Hello again.
Hello, Vagrein. Didn't have any questions for a while, but then some stuff started to come up, and even recently now, I guess you could say now I'm a little distracted because of personal issues, but these questions I think are more long-standing. These ones have percolated in my mind a bit because your energy has been interesting lately. It feels it feels like I found out something about you that's important, but there's a mystery that I'm not knowing how to express really. It seems like in moments of vulnerability or out of nowhere, your energy kind of sneaks into my energy field, and I'm realizing that these sessions are more impactful than I realize. And before I treated it kind of like entertainment or something's not really happening behind the scenes. But as I've been progressing in my own self-development, I'm realizing that, oh, something's really happening. So now there's a weight and an energy of, oh no, what have I started here? This is actually progressing quite quickly.
So in interacting with us, yes, there is the element of the system being in collaboration, your system being in collaboration with this energy through this consent. We did write as well in the book that even having purchased it or having it in your field does amount to consent to, but only to, those aspects and energies that one is available and ready for. So when you say that there's this weight or this importance, we would invite you to allow yourself to put down that weight, as there's nothing specific need doing, and simultaneously, you need not fear that even if it does feel to be progressing quickly, that you will at any point find yourself to be out of what you consider to be control, or at least indirect aspects of your own will in regards to whatever progression you are having. The ability to be casual about one's progression is a skill or a virtue that does serve you in that acceleration. And if you are feeling some level of weight or importance, you can also recognize that any resistance that comes up with that is indeed also serving you to allow yourself to somewhat pump the brakes. So no need to worry too much that you will end up going too fast and that it is all orchestrated based upon your own energy and desire for evolution. And simultaneously, if you are wanting to play with the energies of resistance or with the energies of caution, then that too is available for and with you. But indeed, not all people or beings who interact with us will end up understanding that with consent, there is much in the collaboration between our energy and yours that will accelerate you in the directions of what you are wanting, if you so choose them.
Okay. All right. So I think that's part of the trepidation, is the feeling of being on a roller coaster I can't control, but I'm realizing, no, I have gates along the way where I can say yes and no. It's never a release of control. But at the same time, it's all orchestrated, so there's no need to even control it because it's moving as it should.
Yes.
Okay. lately in this reality, when I'm talking with other individuals here right now, I like to know your perspective on it. There's this energy of a feeling like I'm pulsing in and out of reality, like I'm here, I'm not here. Where even is here? I feel this illusion of a goofiness, talking, walking, just being here, as if I'm play acting what it's like to be a human or being a human. It's an odd feeling of being here and not here.
Well, that is actually the case in that you are energy expressing itself as human for a period. What is occurring is that your human self is becoming very aware of this. And so your perspective of self, your perspective of who you are, what you are, is now allowing itself to be shifted to that higher level more frequently. It does not mean you are not here. Or, again, that question of what is even here is quite pertinent from that space. But it does mean that you are shifting from more of the character in the story to the player of that character.
Yeah, there's more awareness and choice with it too.
Yes.
But I'm finding there's pauses within that choice of, like, as I was saying before about the weight of these choices and the weight of the movement along this becoming path. So there's a ease and relaxation, or there's a comfortability that seeks to land within that feeling state
Yes.
that just feels like I'm starting, stopping when I'm going in and out.
So you are finding it uncomfortable?
Yes, yeah.
The reason why it is feeling uncomfortable is because you're holding a belief that allowing yourself to be in that player perspective would in some ways be dangerous for the character. You do
Yeah.
not lose the human when you are shifting your perspective. First of all, because there was nothing ever to shift. In other words, your higher self already is that player and is what is guiding the human. What you are doing is simply accepting that that is part of the reality and shifting to that particular seat in the auditorium, as opposed to being right up against the screen. You are taking a comfortable spot on the couch and holding onto the controller, feeling the air in the room that you're in, and perhaps having a wider perspective on the all that is. The character does not stop playing in the film or in the game. It does not stop jumping over the bad guys or collecting the coins or saving the princess or whatever it might be that is in that particular story, simply because you have acknowledged that you are the one holding the controller. In fact, if anything, it then becomes far easier to play the game because you stop getting confused as to where the buttons are. You can then actually enjoy the game because you see the entire screen and not only the thing that is right in front of the face of that particular character. So there is even a level of greater safety in aligning yourself with your higher self, because your higher self, of course, is invincible. Even if the character does fall down a hole, you know that this will be okay because the scene will begin from the beginning. Now, we do know that that in and of itself is what frightens people at times, because they think, well, if I knew that the game recommences or it does not matter if I fall down the hole or not, then perhaps I would take less caution towards this. This is not the case, because the truth of the matter is it was always the higher self playing the game anyways. Even if the character thinks that it is the one jumping, it is not. It is the button being pushed on the console.
Yeah, okay. So I think the translation of that energy gap in the pulse is literally the perceived distance between the screen and my seat now. There's more
Yes, it can
space
be
in between.
perceived of as that, but that in and of itself need not be uncomfortable. What is making it uncomfortable is that you believe if you relinquish control to the higher self, you will somehow, from the human perspective, be in danger.
Okay, yeah, that's what's moving through me now. This feeling of vulnerability and being exposed within this game now. Okay, what do I do if that's all about to be thrown out there?
Well, you as the human do nothing because you never have been doing anything.
What do you mean by that?
In that the human is not actually doing anything. The same way the pixels on the screen are not forming themselves. They need the input of that energy of what it is that you are as your non-physical self in order for them to move at all. So it is always your soul that is ensuring you do not step in front of a bus. It is always your soul that is either causing the conflict in your personal relationships or resolving the conflict in the personal relationships. It is always the soul that is having the sun rise in the morning and having it set at night. None of this was ever the obligation of the human self to take care of in any way whatsoever. Yes, there is that aspect of what you perceive of as free will, but even from there, that is simply a question as to whether or not you will be going along with the game or not going along with the game. It does not mean that if you touch a stove, your hand will not recoil. It does not mean that if you have your childhood wounds triggered, you will not have the opportunity to learn to have new beliefs around them, etc. You are not entirely in control anyways. You are only in control as to whether or not you say yes or no. So right now, what you are in control of is whether or not you say yes or no to actually taking the controller yourself. And this is not the human that takes the controller.
Well, so then, if it's not the human that takes the controller, yet as I was saying, and you were saying before, I have access to slow down the ride, stop the
Yes.
ride, or get off, then don't I have the controller?
It can seem that way because the two worlds are so different from each other. So no one is, from the human perspective, rising to become their higher self, so to speak. That is still part of that game. That is still what is manifest on the screen. From within the screen, you cannot see exactly outside, but some of you have created within your storyline this sort of paradox in which it is perceived to be seen that you can see outside. When you make the shift, and this is also why it is uncomfortable to you, and why you do feel like you do not exist or you are not there, it is because it is not the human that is feeling that it does not exist or is not there. It is literally that you are in a different reality when that occurs. In that different reality, you are the player, you are playing the game of the human, and at some point your eyesight will be clear enough, not from the human perspective, again, it is a completely different game, in which you can see the human in all of its glory. Now, it does not mean you abandon the human, it does not mean you put down the game controller, etc. It simply means you are the expanded version of self outside of that particular screen. Up until such point, in terms of the conversation that we are having now, we are in that screen with you. This information is in that screen with you. Your yeses and nos are in that screen with you. You are having a thought experiment with yourself. As the human, yes, but your consciousness or your awareness is what flickers in and out, which is why when you feel like you are not here, what you called here, and those other questions come in, they are temporary, and then there is discomfort, and you do come back with that information to ponder it on the human level. But there are also moments, and we know that you have had them, in which there is that aspect of touching deeply into the higher self, in which space the human, yes, continues to experience simply being human. But it is you who is the witness of that simply being humanness. The human does not disappear. It continues.
Okay. So there's an energy that feels like it just wants all of that to let it rise up, let the emotional body, the mental body rise up with it, allow it to just feel its processes. And yeah, because instantly there's this energy of judgment and fear that gets attached to that with judgment. Yeah, like as if we have to then control the proceedings when it wasn't. So then the only thing
to understand is that all of this is occurring simultaneously, no matter where you place your identification or perspective. In other words, the higher self still is in that space of, and again, it is simply an analogy, because in that world or the experience of the non-physical, there is no time, there is no space, there simply isness. And so your higher self is not linear in the same way your human is. That also causes some level of confusion for your humans, but there's nothing to fear because all of this is happening no matter where you place your perspective. Whether or not you identify with the higher self as this energy, which does in some ways would feel if the human could transport itself to that into a void, then you would still exist completely as the human, even with these fears. This is what is occurring currently right now. In other words, you are already in that perspective. because it is simultaneous. When people speak to us of fears of going there, we know it is because they think it is an either-or situation when it is not either-or. It is absolutely both. You
So
are
would then,
already both, is what we are trying to express.
so would the optimal state be to place myself within both or between both?
The optimal state does not exist. This, again, is a question of preference. You are in a space where you are playing with the desire to live your life at a different level. And so, if you would like to do that, the understanding, again, from the human perspective at this point, because that is what your brain does have access to, the higher self, again, is doing its thing, whether or not your human is on board, would be to understand that it is already all done. It is already the case that you are your highest optimal version. And if you then can, from that space, see your human self as the perfection from which that highest optimal version already sees it, then your life becomes extremely interesting because you no longer have much of the confusion that comes with being in a collective, which comes with being a human individuation. You are seeing your entire life not from the perspective of the individuated human, even though it will continue to be an individuated life, but from the perspective of how all that is sees your life.
Well, how would you navigate reality here then?
Well, the
Moving
good
from that
news is
perspective.
reality is navigating you. So that is already a benefit to this particular situation. In other words, all the situations, circumstances, people come into your life, offerings that you are having, invitations that are being presented to you are all orchestrated by life living you, life bumping into you and giving you options and invitations. You would navigate life from a space of there is nothing that need doing aside from being in this now moment and choosing who I would like to be and how I would like to respond and what I would like to do next. Spending energy with yourself in terms of your desires and your passions and your preferences. And again, looking at those as if they are life living you, life coming to you. So your desire appears and then you say, how interesting is this? This is a magnificent and interesting desire that has appeared. And I then, from the space of having a human avatar, having a human character to play with, get to choose what the human will do with this information. Then you have a line to action that comes from choosing what that human would do with that information. Life does get more interesting because you are living a very unconventional life from this place. You are not trying to control the outcome or even the circumstances themselves as they appear to you, and instead are saying yes to existence on a regular basis.
Okay. That's a different way to live for sure. That's and I'm feeling as I said before, the weight of that now.
Well, your sense of security must then come from a different location. Most humans create their sense of security based upon material and or supportive elements in the storyline itself. In other words, you create relationships because you feel safe emotionally, or you create wealth so that you can retire, or whatever it might be. You set up systems and spend much of your life in a struggle towards some sort of fantasy safety that you think it will bring you at some point. The good and bad news is that all of you meet the exact same end from the human game. So safety in and of itself is a futile sort of pursuit for a human, because if your goal is to not ever have your human experience end, well, then it is in this moment in your human time impossible to do so. It does not matter how much money you have, how good your relationships are, how wonderfully you keep your body, how great your environment is, what your house looks like, which sort of clothes you have, what kind of education you have followed, what your job is like. All of you end up without your physical vessel at some point. So safety in and of itself, we would say, though it is the main goal of humans, followed very closely by the avoidance of pain, is one of those things that is not quite the most clever thing to be pursuing as the goal of your life. We would say expansion would be a more interesting goal to pursue because you are able to achieve expansion within your life. You are not able to achieve safety, nor are you able to achieve the absence of pain. Therefore, what needs to happen when you decide to live a life radically as yourself, as your soul self, is you need to find your sense of safety or slash security from something else. And that safety security does not come from you never dying one day or never being bankrupt or never being alone or whatever it might be. It comes from you having faith that there is your own energy that is ultimately watching out for you, not towards your preferences, but towards you having the most epic possible experience that you can be afforded while your heart is beating.
The next idea or theme I have is that of time and not having enough time, yet knowing I'm creating my perception of it. What is enough time then, and how much is enough? Because it feels correlated to my expression of feeling in a way that in general I am enough in this moment with the things I want to do and time itself. So it's this interesting play within me, enough of me, and at the same time enough of time.
Enough time for what?
For the thinking space of accomplishing what I want to accomplish.
With what deadline?
Self-imposed.
Yes. On top of that, everything that you want to accomplish already is. So it is not a question of how much time is needed or effort is needed. It is how much will you allow right now.
Yeah, because it felt like there is this immediate expansion of understanding that all time is relative and the same. So I have as much time as I think is needed. Okay, so that's why at times, yeah, it feels like time condenses, time expands based on what we're allowing in and that.
If you can even think of the last day, any memory that you have from that day, in the memory itself, perhaps you were doing something that took a certain amount of time. And now, as you think of that thing that you accomplished or that certain amount of time, is it not condensed into the one memory, which is in this now moment?
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
proof that yesterday existed outside of your memory of it?
Other than the things I created that represents the past.
Yes, but you have many things as well that represent many pasts.
Explain.
In that, everything that is in your environment that could be said to be evidence of something that had occurred in the past is created in this now moment for you to have interaction with, to either confirm or to disaffirm what ideas you are already having. So, for example, if you went to a shop and you have the receipt of having purchased a sandwich in the shop, then you can say, yes, look, I have this receipt because I went to the shop yesterday to have this sandwich. But in this now moment, you do not have a sandwich. You have a piece of paper that you have created in this now moment to be holding, to be telling you that you had a sandwich yesterday. You have the memory and the piece of paper, both of which are created in this now moment. Now, the thing about linear time and humans and memory is that you do not realize quite how elastic and malleable it is, and quite how able you are to time travel, or what you perceive of as time traveling. Because of memory, it is easier to time travel into the past and change the past, but you have these pesky little receipts hanging around your house of things that occurred in the past that make it more solid than need be. And because you do not necessarily have predictive natures of the future, you have a little bit more trouble traveling into the future because you do believe that that is not possible outside of what you are disregarding as your imagination. But the truth remains is that all that is this now moment, and everything that is in this now moment is in only this now moment. Whether it can then be traced back in your mind, again, no different than information or imagination, to what you perceive of as a past moment. Now, what we are suggesting here by referencing the past in regard to you saying, I don't have enough time, is that there is the version of you, even if you have set yourself a project that you think will take 7 years, there's already the version of you that has a little piece of paper somewhere saying that you participated on this project 7 years. And then they would then go, oh, look, it took me 7 years longer than I would have wanted it to arrive to this project. But that future version of you already exists, and their consciousness already exists, and you are already tethered to that consciousness. If you so choose, you can time travel to that consciousness, collect everything that that being learned or achieved or accomplished, and bring it back to now, reducing the amount of time it created that project significantly. You specifically would be able to do this quite easily in dreams as well.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. It feels like there's a lot of clutter being shoveled out right now.
Yes.
Um,
And any resistance that you find, again, comes back to that same, do I want to accelerate at this speed? Do not push yourself. You need not fret. Everything is unfolding in perfect, quote, timing.
but it's kind of good in a way, the buildup of energy, because then you allow yourself to, it gets to a point where, all that's left to do is just to let go and let that old self wash away, because it'll naturally do that because it's just not in the same vibrational pattern that I'm now in.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. I can feel, it's interesting how this energy, it feels spatial in a sense of, it feels like it's shapes, its geometry. So it feels like it matches and interlocks with my own field. So it's not so much about having to conceptualize and think it through in order to integrate it. It's integrated, that geometry is then integrated in the feeling space, the
Yes.
awareness of the body. But why is that then? Why does it have to, because the ego wants to say in order for it to be real and integrated, then it has to be thought of and categorized and controlled in a certain manner. Yet it's the feeling state that actually does that. So why is that the preference?
Well, it is not a preference. It is simply how things are. You did not have to think your way into learning how to walk or talk. You simply were exposed to those energies, have the predisposition to take on those particular skills. And so as a child, this was natural to you. As a child, you did not think you needed to integrate your learnings in the same way that you then decided that as an adult you would need to. So the question is not why is it that way, is why not? The existence of being human can be far simpler than you have made it out to be, because there is not very much, again, back to that question of the human does not have very much to do except for decide whether or not it is going to play the game of saying yes to existence.
So it seems like the natural state is to be mindless then, and let the body of awareness act out its energy. Yeah, like a kid does. They don't really think too long, too hard about anything. It's more or less in the awareness of the body and the feeling state.
Yes, but not just the body. The mind is an equal tool to the body, in that your body is a tool for your ability to move in location, your ability to communicate, etc. The mind is a computer that you have on board with this particular vessel that is there to process data, to aid you in many ways, to tell you what the world is about, to allow you to have input and output of thoughts and ideas, etc. It was never meant to be a guide to you. It was never meant to control your experience. It was simply meant to do what it is here for, to be the motherboard computer upon which your human experience can rely for certain aspects.
A processing of insight and the processing of all that sense data, and also the sending and receiving of insight visions.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to check in quickly. When was the last time that you realized that you were more than just your human self? I love publishing these videos for you, but I really want you to be interactive with them and to reflect upon the topics that you're hearing and listening to, and to leave a comment so that we can interact and create a wonderful community here with all of these like-minded beings. I'd really love to read your stories and hear your reflections.
Okay. There's also an energy and themes of I'm feeling confronted with, where it seems like the main themes are concerning possession and abandonment, and how it relates to being confronted with that ever-present unconditional love from the guide I mentioned for in the previous session that triggered the Kundalini energy. There's a strong reveling energy and strength and power that I've come this far without the knowing of unconditional love, even though I know I want it, and I'm standing in the face of that unconditional love, seeing it. And then there's this cliff that's in the body of my awareness, and the ego or the personality doesn't want to fall into it. And because below that cliff, it's this wilderness of unconditional love. So there's this odd sense of strength and power and reveling in that because I've done it without it for this long.
So are you saying you have not experienced being the object of unconditional love, or that you have not been in capability of offering unconditional love?
I'm leaning more towards capability of offering, because there's this, as I was saying before, there seems to be this head understanding of, no, there are beings that I know love me unconditionally, but there's a part of me, I guess, not fully know that. Yeah, because if I truly knew that, yeah, that question wouldn't be there.
Well, what is the question in a more direct way?
In a more direct way, it's offering myself into unconditional love when I see it, when I feel it, instead of standing apart from it because I feel that makes me strong. How do I lean into that unconditional love?
Well, all love ultimately is unconditional. If you're speaking of relations, then it is possible that you are not actually sensing what could be unconditional, but also in human relations, there truly aren't unconditional relations, even though, again, all love is unconditional. So we do understand that you may not want to throw yourself into relations that are what you seem or perceiving to be as unconditional. First of all, because there is aspects of you that you yourself do not love about yourself. And up until one can love all of themselves, they will be suspect of anyone who says, I love all of you. So there's automatically that bit of discord between one's self-love and anything that they can receive. You can only receive enough love from someone else that you currently are able to provide to yourself. Likewise, you can only provide to another self as much love as you currently have for yourself. So it all starts with the self. Again, we are not entirely, and we do not believe you are entirely understanding the question, because we will now ask you to define, what do you mean by unconditional love?
Love that is always ever present, offered to me, no matter what I do or be.
Now we will ask you to define the word love.
Recently, before in my life, it was hard to understand it because I always saw it as there wasn't a grounding with it. But lately, it's come into my awareness that it's acceptance. It's, as you said, radical acceptance. And it's always there. It's always offering that.
So, in the case of a relation, for example, where you have had a conversation with someone and they have been loving, and then at some point you have done something or said something, and it seems as if their love has been withdrawn, does that feel to you as to be conditional love?
Yes.
So, what we will clarify here is that in soul contracts, all soul contracts, even if love is withdrawn, it is often another manifestation of that acceptance. Because, for example, if you have said something that is offensive to the other person and they have said, you know what, I need to take a step back to have a bit of space to myself because I am feeling these emotions, then what is occurring in your dance with this being is they are reflecting to you what it is that they do not like, quote, in your personality or whatever it might be, but simultaneously now offering you something in your experience. And that offering of the trigger that they have rejected you or whatever it might be because you said the wrong thing is in and of itself also a loving gesture towards growth. So when humans talk about unconditional love and they are talking about eternal patience, warmth, and presence, this is often not even love. Because, of course, you as humans will bump into each other and step on each other's toes. This is part of the process. Someone who is manifesting, quote, unconditional love under these circumstances is not unconditionally loving themselves. Because why would you be continuously in a dance room with someone who is stepping on your toes without stopping them to say, hey, ouch, that hurts? So that being that might be able to manifest unconditional love or seem to for another self is not actually manifesting unconditional love, because that love in and of itself would extend to them as well. So boundaries are healthy, and having that back and forth is healthy. Of course, a loving person will learn the tools of communication to be able to interact with you in ways that are nonviolent or ways that are respectful. But unconditional love does not always mean being there or present. It does, yes, mean the acceptance. But it also means that that person has accepted that you are stepping on their toes. Does this make sense?
My brain's not quite getting it, but
Yes.
the energy is there, which means
So
it's going to take a while to filter through.
indeed. And for the story of unconditional love, it is often learned with the self first. And you will also be presented with people who step on your toes. Often, what a being such as yourself might attempt to do in order to learn the lesson of unconditional love is say, well, I love them even if they are stepping on my toes, and allow that toe stepping to continue. However, the true manifestation of unconditional love is also and simultaneously holding within yourself the acceptance that that other person is exactly as they are. And sometimes it does not mean that you have to be there in presence with them.
Yeah, there's a part of me that really wants to know that level of oneness so that it doesn't feel like I need a condition of another body to feel love or lack of it.
Yes.
To always feel that whether or not there is another body around me or there is a verbal acceptance coming from their mouth.
Yes. And that is the interesting aspect of relationship or relating ship, in that you will have new challenges presented. But while there's the possibility of learning the actual truths of unconditional love, they actually do not normally correlate with whether or not you are in a happy relationship. Not that they will automatically mean you will not be, but the two learnings or those two lessons are separate from each other. A happy relationship is more about whether or not you have shared goals, visions, desires, and compatibility to move together in a chapter of life at the same time, much more so than unconditional love, which is ultimately, as you said, an internal job. They are not mutually exclusive in that you can work on both at the same time, and we would suggest to, because it is quite entertaining to be in relationship, but they can also be worked on separately.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like that's a big one that's gonna give it time to land and time to feel that out.
Yes. We have time for one or two more questions.
I guess another question is how deep is meaning really? Because everything in a sense is meaningless. We give it meaning. Yet I remember you stating a phrase of infinite unconditional value of the soul that's present and inherent in it. But isn't that meaning? Isn't that judgment then?
No, in that there's no comparison between anything at all. There's only what you have access to. So it is logic more so than meaning. If you have access to your current now experience, if you have access to this current incarnation, if you have access to this particular day, to this particular moment, to this particular interaction, then you are, by default, not having access to everything else in the all that is, to every other experience that is available in the infinite expansion of all that is. Which would, by logical conclusion, mean that this is the most, quote, important one. Does this mean that in and of itself has any meaning? No, not at all. You can also see it as just a toss of the dice, chaos, manifest, completely irrelevant. So when we say something is of infinite importance, we also mean it is of infinite irrelevance, in that it is not at all significant. This is a paradox because, again, you do assign meaning. Now, if you thought that every moment of your day, and many of you do, was insignificant, you would have a completely different experience of your day than you would if you thought every moment of your day had meaning, that every moment of your day was bringing you to the next one. You would have more intention, more presence, more focus. You would enjoy it more because you would say, wow, look at this. This is the first and last time this particular experience will ever happen. This particular now moment will never be here again. Even if it is similar to some of the others, it is never going to be exactly the same. And you would assign value and meaning to it and therefore have a more meaningful life, which is something that you as humans have decided you would like to have. Or you could make it completely insignificant. It is up to you. But there's no judgment in any of it.
So it seems like there's no long-standing meaning. It's
No.
just awareness expressing itself. You're aware of it, and then the meaning comes in the moment, right then and there. And then
Yes, and that is all that is.
It's a loose holding of it. So
Yes.
you let it fade out, and then you let the next moment bring the awareness of whatever needs to come up in that moment of meaning.
Indeed, because within your life, even at times, you assign more meaning to something than something else. You have a relationship and you say, this is the most important one. You have a certain type of interaction and you say, wow, that has changed me forever. You have a dream and you say, wow, look what this means. I better watch out not to cross bridges over water, etc., etc. When all of it is of equal importance, including that time that you sat on the toilet straining yourself for longer than you normally do.
Yeah, it's another example of everything is holy, everything is sacred, and nothing is. There's no difference. Just like when I was in Orlando at your event, it's like I had that feeling of every moment can be like this. It doesn't have to be just
Yes.
going to see you to feel that.
Yes, that is indeed the case, and holding it very loosely is one of the keys to being able to interact with that, because you are the same energy. You would not be able to hear our words if you were not this energy.
The one is the one.
Indeed.
So if you're experiencing, you are the one.
Yes.
Thank you.
So then, to come back to the beginning of the conversation, do not fret. You are as safe as any human could possibly ever be, and your own sense of safety or ability to be, quote, in control is being bolstered very frequently by the levels of faith that you have and that level of holding things loosely and ease that you can step into at any given point in time. Again, you do have quite a good, and without judgment, but you use this word often, tether between yourself as the human and your non-physical self, and many gifts that are part of your package, so to say. So they are coming online and you are feeling them more and more frequently. Let it be your new normal. It is not a problem that you are letting go of a more, what is perceived to be ordinary life. You are stepping into more of yourself and you are in a space in which you are able to do so. And so allow it to simply be that, not that this is so strange and unusual that is coming up, but perhaps that earlier versions of you were slightly confused or did not have the entire story yet. And as this story unfolds, keep saying to yourself, well, I'm simply reading the next page in this chapter of this book that was already written, not having fear that if you turn the page, that the book is going to turn into a completely different book or start flying around the room, etc. Everything is fine, everything is on schedule, and you are also the one who's deciding how fast to read it.
Okay, thank you.
We thank you. And with that, we leave you the light and the love of 1,000 suns. A nine. If this session stirred something for you or left you in a weird space of what even is real, then let me know in the comments. I can't wait to get back to you and find out what impact this had on you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and to click the bell icon so you're notified as soon as new sessions come out. And if you're in the mood for even more expansion, click on one of these videos that is going to pop up right now, because I've now compiled all of the content into playlists based upon theme, and it makes it easier than ever to navigate topics that are relevant for you. So do check them out, keep watching some Vagrein videos, and leave a comment to let me know what you think. See you again soon.